time. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can I get a motion that the closed meeting be closed and the board certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting to which the certification applies, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion concerning the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and considered.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Edwards. Second, Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Present.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Honeycutt.
At this time, if we could get everybody to stand and join us for Pledge of Allegiance. Also, during our moment of silence this evening, we want to remember Mary Blanks, who lost her father. She is a Mecklenburg County Public School employee, administrative here at the office. Mr. Mayhew and the loss of his brother. And also Josh Adams in our IT department, whose mother was buried today. So during that moment of silence, would you all please remember them? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, recognitions. Mr. Nichols.
Thank you very much. We have some good recognitions tonight. I'm going to ask Dr. Scales if he would come up for the presentations.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So glad to be here. Starting out tonight, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm actually going to do my Senior of the Month, starting with the Parkview High School student first. First, I'd like to bring up Sarah Lynn Idner, a senior from Parkview High School. Can you come forward at this time? Sarah was selected as the Student of the Month for the month of March, and is the daughter of Timothy and Sandra Idner. She has a sister, Megan, who's a freshman at Parkview High School, and a brother, Dylan, at Parkview Middle School. Sarah is a member of the Marching Dragons and has just returned from her wonderful trip to Florida, which she says she enjoyed, with the high school band. She is also a Beta Club member and attends the Governor School of Southside Virginia, where she will receive her associate's degree in May, along with her advanced diploma from Parkview High School. She has been recognized each year for being on the honor roll. In the community, Sarah is a member of Olive Branch Baptist Church and a volunteer at Camp Concord. Sarah has spent many years babysitting and for many local families. In her free time, she enjoys reading, hunting, collecting Converse and fedoras. Upon graduation, Sarah plans to attend VCU, and there she will study criminal justice, then move on to become a game warden, which is a very noble job. Congratulations, Sarah, and continue to do great things for Mecklenburg County. For Bluestone High School, Jared William Lader. Will you come forward at this time? Jared Lader is the Bluestone High School Senior of the Month, and he's the son of Mike and Lori Lader, who resides in Clarksville. He attends St. Paschal Catholic Church in South Boston. Jared is a courteous and quiet young man and is recognized as a leader for the high school. At BHS, Jared is involved in robotics, where he's one of the team captains for Team Scrappy. In fact, actually, Team Scrappy was recognized this weekend for being the runners-up in the district, which is the first time they at a district tournament event, where that was the first time ever in school history, so that's very good. He is also a member of the Beta Club and plans to obtain his associate's degree from Southside Virginia Community College along with his advanced diploma in May, and he currently has a 4.0 GPA. Jared stays busy. He has his own lawn care business, maintaining the family's rental property, and works with his father doing odd jobs. He is also a member of the Clarksville Fire Department and recently received Most Improved Firefighter Award. Upon graduating from high school, he plans to go on to Danville Community College, where he will work on electrical engineering and looking to transfer to a four-year institution. His hobby of robot designing and engineering has been guiding him so his talents can take him to a future in the elements of a STEM-related profession. Congratulations. If y'all can move to the front there, to the front, so you can get your pictures. And parents, you can come forward and take pictures as well if you'd like. Once again, congratulations, and you may be seated. And we ask that you and your families remain until the meeting's over, until the school board members come forward, okay? Thank you. Next, we'll have a wonderful presentation for our Beta Club students from Parkview High School who have qualified to go to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, for the National Beta Competition, led by Ms. Bobby Wright, their advisor, and also Ms. Ashley Morris. So when I call your name, please come forward and you'll be getting your certificates, and we'll have some brief words from Ms. Wright and the club president. Tim Logan, Logan Tim, excuse me. Caitlin Campbell, Isabel Ranieri, Brittany Hayes, Cody Campbell, you can stay right there. Hunter Wright, Noah Whitby, last one, Matthew Condicito. Others who will also be attending the event that were not able to make tonight: Avery Kellett, Danielle Green, Brittany Hayes, Avery Kellett, Logan Tim, that's it. But the biggest thing is for these young people is that they've done an outstanding job at the local, state, and regional levels, and they're now getting ready to work their ways to the national event. So if I can have Ms. Wright and Ms. Morris to come forward also, and they have some words at this time.
We are really proud of these kids. This is the first year that we have taken 11 kids to the national, or to qualify for the national level. You are not allowed to attend the National Beta Convention unless you have qualified at the state level. Again, we have 11 kids that we are taking to Oklahoma City. This is the third year in a row that we have attended the national convention. Up until 2 years ago, Parkview had not qualified for the national convention since 2011. So I am really proud of the group of kids. Hunter is the only one here tonight, I think, and Matthew, that have been all 3 years since they joined the Betas as a sophomore. We're hoping Caitlin, who is a sophomore, that she will be going to the national convention with us for the next 2 years as well. We are excited to have the newcomers that have not been all 3 years. Noah is the second year national convention person. So.
All righty, and my name is Noah Whitby. I am the president of the Beta Club here at Parkview. This will be my second year going to nationals. With the first year, like Ms. Wright said, this will be our third year going. Our first year was in Orlando, Florida. Our second year was in Savannah, Georgia, which was last year, which was my first national convention. And this will be in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This trip tends to be a little more expensive because it is in the Midwest. It's a little harder to get out there. We are going to have to fly, pay for transportation there. The hotels is expensive also. And we are currently having five different fundraisers. One, we are partnering with the Donut Shop in South Hill with selling gift certificates with them. We also are partnering with Sonic. They have given us these cards that we are able to sell for $5, which is straight par for us. And we are also having Pizza Hut nights. Our first one will be next Monday, the 25th, close enough. And that will be from 5 to 9. It is dine in and carry out, and we will get a percentage of the sales throughout that night, and that will be the first of 4. We're also having a paint party with Sass and Sawdust in South Hill, and we'll be having 2 different car washes at Advance Auto with those dates to be determined. The total cost for this trip is roughly around $13,000, with each student also having to put in some of their own money and participating in all of these fundraisers. But we are asking that the school board and the community please help as much as they can. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Y'all can move forward and get a picture. Y'all can move forward and get a picture.
They should be.
Congratulations, and please remain until the school board members get a chance to meet you all. Y'all may be seated. Thank you. The last student recognition I have is a state recognition for track and cross-country accomplishments. Can I have Frank Sorbo come up at this time from Bluestone High School? We're recognizing Frank for his accomplishments in cross-country and indoor track. For cross-country, he was the James River District Champion, All-District, and Runner of the Year. He was the Region 2 third place overall with a time of 17:30 and made the All-Region team. For the Virginia High School League 2A, he was 12th overall, earning All-State honors. In indoor track, just recently, at the 2A championship, he was the champion of the 3,200 meter race at the All-Region, made All-Region team. And at the state meet, he was 6th in the state, made the All-State team in the 1,600 meter. So again, Frank Sorbo, congratulations. All right, just go up there and take your picture. He said he has no words, so he's good. Congratulations again.
We do have one other special recognition that would like to be made at this time, and our board chair is going to make these recognitions.
Good evening, Board. At this time, we have 3 more recognitions. The first one, Mr. Gavin Honeycutt, come down. Mr. Honeycutt, on behalf of the school board, in appreciation for your service, this is a Service Excellence Award given to you, Mr. Honeycutt, In appreciation for your dedication and commitment to the education in Mecklenburg County, we honor you for your excellence in the service as a school board parliamentarian, 2017-2018. Thank you for your outstanding service to the Mecklenburg County Public Schools. Ms. Wanda Bailey. Welcome. This is also a Service Excellent Award presented to you, Ms. Wanda Bailey, in appreciation for your dedication and commitment to the education in Mecklenburg County. We honor you for your service, your excellence in service as a school board vice chair, 2017-2018. Thank you for your outstanding service to Mecklenburg County Public Schools. Mr. Ritchie, come down. Mr. Ritchie, this is your Service Excellent Award, presented to you, Mr. Brent Ritchie, in appreciation for your dedication and commitment to the education in Mecklenburg County. We honor you for your excellence in service as School Board Chair, 2017-2018. Thank you for your outstanding service to Mecklenburg County Public Schools. I believe, come to the center, get your picture. Thank you. At this time, all the students who were given an award, please come up so the board can greet you.
We have asked, after last month's presentation, and there may have been some questions, we've asked Ms. Holly Tillman to come back to give us some more information about the Y Street 24/7 campaign for tobacco-free schools.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to come. Also, I apologize for my voice. I'm a little under the weather. I promise not to touch too much, and if I do, grab some soap and water. I actually did bring some folders. I know on your website that you have uploaded a lot of the documents that we had actually previously given you. But in the folders that I brought, I actually took a stab at looking at your policies and providing a few recommendations. So I'm going to pass these out really quickly.
Thank you.
So this has more than what we had last month?
So it's very similar to what you have, but the revised policy.
Hello, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that's what I wanted.
So on the left-hand side of your folder, of course, you know, however you'd like to proceed, if you'd like to ask questions first, but just on the left-hand side are the same policies that were given last month, and I've kind of gone in and updated based on what we have in our model policy. So, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about the program, or just,
One of the questions that
No.
I have, you're surely familiar with the fact that over the General Assembly, there were some laws that were passed about tobacco-free areas
Yes.
in schools. How is this going to go beyond what we will be needing to live under, what all schools would be needing to live under with the new laws that have passed?
Yes, so that bill, we actually did work on with the governor to get passed in conjunction with the Virginia Department of Health and the Virginia Department of Education. A lot of what we've been asking school divisions to do for since 2014 is actually very similar to what the bill has passed. So at this point in time, we're actually hammering out a lot of those details with our key stakeholders to ensure that when that policy language goes out, it's been almost a month now. It was signed by the governor on the 27th, but we've been working really closely with the Department of Health and other folks to make sure that when that language is pushed out, it'll look similar to what is actually in your folders.
So my question is then, if we were to go ahead and adopt this now. Eventually, we're probably going to adopt something similar to it when we get that pushed out to us from the VSBA.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
We do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Another item B tonight is an update from Ballou Justice in Upton related to our new school project. I think that the board members will find the brief presentation to be very exciting. Last night, those of us that were able to go to the regional board meeting were very pleased to see something of this nature with schools that they had been working on, and then we got the call that said we have this available to some degree for ours. It's not complete yet, but it's an update, and it'll give board members an option to ask questions about along the way. So, Mr. Upton, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's always wonderful to be with you and be before you. I appreciate the many things you do for our wonderful county of Mecklenburg and for the citizens that are here and the youth who have accomplished so much. We know your agenda is jam-packed full, so we're going to just buzz right through. We met with the committee today and presented some of the other information, furniture, equipment, that kind of stuff. But we have a video that we prepared that gives an update of the progress. Again, as Mr. Nichols said, it's not the final, but it's moving along. So we'd like to take about 8 or 9 minutes to show you this video. And then if you don't have any questions, we're going to buzz out and let you go ahead with your work. So please start. I'm sure I won't say too much, but basically what we're doing is flying around the existing school on the site, showing all the fields, the parking, everything about the school. And we're going to move around the school, and then we're going to come back to the front, and we're going to do a tour inside the school. So you will see that. The later version that we will have, we will actually have music and all that stuff with it, but this one is just the video itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice.
There's the ROTC.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's nice.
The career centers built in there. Mhm, it does. That's the area that the students will go in from the buses, one for the middle and one for the high. The gyms, the academic middle school. It is, isn't it? This is the high school entrance. It's a media center.
As we stated earlier, these spaces, when we get through, we will have color with accent walls, educational posters, and many things that will make the space look more complete and also color-coded for wayfinding, things like that. So it's quite a bit left to do, but it just kind of gives you the basic skeleton of what's happening.
High school cafeteria, the auditorium. This is the high school dining area. I think that's the school store.
This is one of the quarters we call the Hall of Fame. We will have bulletin boards and posters and everything of the accomplishments of the students entering into the gym. Again, we will have their banners and panels and scoreboards and all the things that make this really lived-in, fun place to be. And the same with this connection between the gym and the dining area. We want this to be a pleasant place to have lunch, and you can go outside and have lunch in areas outside as well as inside. Should be a very nice experience. And the
See, there's a
food
barn
quality,
back
we
there.
know, will be good. This is the bus loading ramp that's covered for bad weather. So, thank you. We appreciate you taking time to look at that with us. And if you have any questions, but we know your time is short, so.
Any comments, board members?
Questions or comments? It's beginning rendering. There's a lot more work that has yet to be done. And I think it's important that the board know that conversations you and I have had, we're still on the timeline that was
Yes.
originally projected.
Yes.
So the goal is that we would get through with the second phase of the architectural drawings and whatnot through into the summer, and at some point in the summer, be ready to go out to bid, and then be back and probably be breaking ground on this sometime in the fall, late summer, early fall.
Yes, we are very much on track. We've got a lot of work to do, but everything is tracking as planned. So it's going well.
Okay.
Thank you for all your support.
You'll have other updates for us?
Yes,
as time goes by.
we will update this, and we will have continued updates for you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to your team. Of course, we know that that's been a significant accomplishment for the county. We're very, very excited about it. That's, at this point, scheduled to come in at a budget of $120 million. There's the bond referendums that are a part of this year's budget. As we've looked at next year's budget, we had the public hearing for the budget on Friday night. There were a couple of persons who came in, some custodians who came in specifically and talked about the need for the percentile increase as well as the scale. As I present the budget for your voting tonight, I just want to reinforce that this scale, the salary increase with the scale being fixed, is the most important item of the new budget that we have moving forward. I think that was made clear at the public hearing on Friday night. I think it's been made clear by everyone out there. I want to reinforce that in the projections that we have and moving forward, and we have a slide that I want to bring up, and on your package, board members, you have a synopsis of the pages that I use as I talk to board members and to others. I'll let Brooke pull those up. These 2 pages actually identify, just as we did last year, the additional items to the budget that we currently have as members of our staff have identified things that we need. These include a couple of items such as the 4 behavioral specialists for alternative ed at the elementary level. It includes the career professionals that we need by DOE standards at the middle school level. It includes several components that we need related to technology, to maintenance, and other things. And I put it in this format so that I can talk with members of the Board of Supervisors about these items to try to convince them of that. But again, I go back to the fact that the salary increase is what's most important, because we're having a very difficult time finding the teachers. We've looked around the region and looked around in other places, and we find that our scale, if we are able to fix the scale, will put us in a position to be competitive. If we don't have the scale, as in addition to the 5%, then we will not be as competitive this year. So that's an item that we need to really emphasize and take to them. Another issue that I want to bring to your attention, and I want to ask you to think this over next month and vote on it next month, is permission that I would be able to go out and invite homeschool parents and students to a meeting to let them know that we would like to invite them as residents of Mecklenburg County, taxpaying residents of Mecklenburg County, to participate in CTE classes or advanced placement classes that we have in place. Our ADM, again, next year will be down, is projected by the state to be down. That has an impact on our revenues. We have, as I can calculate it, about 130 homeschool students that we would benefit, and if they come and give us one class for an AP, for example, then we would get a quarter of an ADM's credit for them for our funding. If they came to a CTE class, for example, we would be able to get half a day, for half a day, we could get a half a day's, or a half an ADM for those. And then we also know that we are in a position that if they do more than that, we get a full ADM. So we feel like we could be supportive of them, as CTE classes or advanced education classes are often difficult for them to be a part of. And I'd like you to think about that so that at next month's meeting, you could look at voting and giving me the option of being able to move forward with that. But that could help our revenues significantly and support the schools and the homeschool students as well. So those items, I think, are very important. And hopefully, as we now, after your vote tonight, assuming that you will vote for the budget as we've considered it, we'll take it over to the Board of Supervisors, and we will emphasize those parts as important. The other part of the budget, which we did not have data on until very recently, was the health insurance. And we have representatives from the Pierce Group that will be coming up and giving us a presentation on our health insurance options altogether. The good news is that there is a very slight increase in our health insurance for this year, but it's an increase that we will not have to pass on in monthly cost to our teachers, nor is it something that we'll have to pick up ourselves. It'll be an option that'll be there. So if
Mr. Nichols, we have a question before you get to that. Ms.
Okay,
Bailey?
yes. I'm sorry.
While they're coming, I can ask this question. So to include the homeschool students as part-time students, is there any kind of policy change that we need to make within our policy?
No, I think it's just a matter of, I'd like to, for everybody to know that the board is behind me on this.
I see. So there's then nothing that formally that we have?
Nothing formally, no, they're tax-paying. Now, if they were someone coming in from outside of our county, you know, they'd have to go through the same procedures as we do for anybody else. But as representatives or members of our community, then there's no real policy changes that have to be made. We're not in a position to open the door for athletics. That's because the Virginia High School League has not opened that door. They have said that the homeschool students cannot participate in athletics. But we are in a position to be able to do this with our own.
Thank you.
So, do we have the Pierce Group?
Good evening. My name is Donna Nixon, and I'm with Pierce Group Benefits, and thank you very much for allowing us to be here tonight. And thank you for the continued partnership. It is truly an honor for us to serve Mecklenburg County Schools with your employee benefits package. Tonight, I'd like to introduce Miss Lexi Forrest. She is one of our senior account executives at Pierce Group, and she has been working very closely with our teams at analyzing your prior health plan, and this evening she'd like to share a little bit of information with you as far as how the plan has been running, and our hope is to be able to share with you kind of some of our plans for engagement with the employees over this next plan year.
Thank you, Donna. As Donna mentioned, I'm Lexi Forrest. I'm with Pierce Group. I had the pleasure of having a meeting and meeting Mr. Nichols and the team earlier this month, so I'm excited to be on board. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and get started with looking at your prior year health plan. So this slide here takes a look at the membership numbers from each year. As you can see, from the July 2017 to June 2018 plan year, there was a decrease in the subscribers and a slight increase in the members. And just so you're aware, subscribers are employees and the members are the dependents enrolled. Relatively, it has remained stable. Just wanted to point out the increase and the decrease. We also like to track the average age. Typically, the younger the age, the less claims incurred, and also your age has remained stable there as well. This slide here is the cost of service by type or location. Just so you're aware, inpatient is just what it sounds like. Services incurred while overnight in a hospital setting. Outpatient is also kind of like what it sounds like. rendered in an outpatient setting, such as an x-ray, labs, surgery, chemotherapy, etc. Professional is physician charges for your primary care physician or a specialist. And you can see here that your outpatient did increase by 7%. However, that is a good trend. The outpatient is less invasive and cost-efficient procedures. Also, your inpatient decreased for about 7% as well, and this can also result in claim savings. Professional remained about the same. This slide here is your large claim report. You can see that you had a total of 9 high-cost claimants. These were claims over $50,000. So altogether, it was a little over $1 million, resulting in 53.5% of the total cost. This does have an impact on renewals, these high-cost claimants. This slide here is the top health conditions by paid amount. Circulatory relates to heart-related conditions such as hypertension. Musculoskeletal, bones, joints, ligaments, muscles, and tendons. Ill-defined can be something such as a minor sprain or an accident. Health status could be a follow-up to a surgery. Injury or poisoning is such as minor injuries, medication reactions, etc. As you can see, this accounted for 63% of the total claims spend. This report here helps us track which conditions are avoidable versus which ones are simply unavoidable. This also helps us decide what types of areas we need to target our messaging to. This slide here shows the preventive care benchmarks. And this is very important for your employees to obtain recommended annual screenings so that their conditions can be caught early and treated earlier so that it can prevent employees having those high-cost claimants that we just talked about. We have, for Mecklenburg County Public Schools, designed your benefit package to include plans that include a paid incentive for employees to get their preventive screenings done each year. Our benefit counselors spent time during this past enrollment talking about the value of getting these preventive screenings. So I'm happy to say that the messaging is showing off here. You can see that Mecklenburg was above benchmark on every measurement. So great job. This slide here is for the emergency room visits. Ambulatory visits means that this did not result in an admission or involve surgery. Avoidable is diagnoses that can be treated in an alternative setting, such as a primary care physician. You can see here that there were 79 avoidable emergency room visits that resulted in almost $66,000. You can see that the top 5 diagnoses are below there, representing 24.1%. So we will continue to develop ways to provide good information and resources to your employees to help them navigate highest quality and lowest cost by educating them on the primary care and urgent care centers in the area, Live Health Online, as well as our 24/7 Nurse Line and Health Library. A few more programs that we will be promoting is the Condition Care Program. This is a great resource for employees with chronic conditions. We want to help employees understand that those nurses that are doing the outreach to them are actually there to help them and assist them with following up with treatments and appointments. There's also a great Quit for Life tobacco cessation program for employees that are interested in quitting smoking and using tobacco products, as well as an employee assistance program. You can receive up to 4 sessions at no cost, as well as a great Future Moms program. We will be promoting all of these in the near future. So we are committed to working with your leadership team to educate employees to change behaviors that provide positive impacts to the employees as well as the plan. We will be spending time on employee education campaigns so that we can increase participation in the case management, as well as promote urgent care centers, wellness program awareness, as well as a telehealth program. Also, during open enrollment, We will educate the value of an HSA, health savings account, provide resources to help employees make cost-effective decisions. Thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
While they're thinking about questions, a couple of things that I just want to point out. In the years that I've been here, and we switched to the Pierce Group while I was here, it was most noticeable to me that their education outreach individually with our employers has been huge. They've provided excellent information. And to come in now, when I'm hearing other school divisions whose cost of health insurance is continuing to go up, and we've had 2 years basically at 0% increase, I attribute a lot of that to continued education and interaction that they're doing with them. And you can always learn. And a couple of things that I learned from this, one of the areas that we did not quite meet our goal, I think, was in men care.
Yes, the
We're
male
predominantly-
preventive screenings.
Yeah, the
So
male
you made the
preventive-
benchmark.
Yeah, I'm guilty. I haven't been doing that as I should have. But the other one was, and it happened that Mr. Cyphers was out when we got this with the flu. And instead of going to the emergency room, as I took my wife to the emergency room, he did the telemedicine and saved a bunch of money. So, Gary, thank you. You saved money. I spent money. And I think we need to get more of that type of information, because I didn't really understand the telemedicine piece. So it's getting the education out there for saving money that I think will make a big difference, and avoiding emergency rooms is a big part of that. So I don't know if the board has other questions related to that or not.
Questions, board? None? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the past month, moving on to fall assessment data, we've had the instructional committee meet, and there were some specific questions about our fall results. So I've asked Dr. Scales if he would come and share some of this information. The importance, when we've shared fall data in the past, or spring data, annual data with SOLs, it's always been focused on our percent of students that we're passing, and that's important. The biggest issue is, as you see and as he will be presenting, the whole system has changed, and it's changed significantly, and it's changed in such a way that it will be impactful, but our assessment system is not focused only on SOLs. We have to work some of this out. The big issue is the numbers of high school students that are taking SOL exams has decreased dramatically, and the students that are having to take the tests that are the ones that are having the most difficulty with some of the tests. So I'm going to ask Dr. Scales to look at that and talk about the impact on our school system long-term.
Good evening again. In October this year, we had a significant change that we knew there were going to be changes in the SOLs with the reduction, especially with the profile of the Virginia high school graduate. But we were actually, administratively, we talked about this, we were actually anticipating that just be impacting our ninth graders and beyond, because they only need 5 SOLs. They need they need the 2 Englishes, a math, a science, and a history. But in October, the state decided to make a change of reducing SOLs. Now, what's happened, I'm going to preface it with this. It was common for students with advanced diplomas, for example, to come out of high school with 11 SOLs. Otherwise, which would be, an advanced diploma requires 9. They would graduate with 11 SOLs, which, as an administrator, I loved it because I appreciated them taking the extra 2 and boosting my scores. In October, that suddenly changed for us, and it made an impact on a lot of things. And the changes that is in the underline was, again, if a student has passed all of their SOLs that's required, they, in a particular subject matter, for example, if they're an advanced diploma student and they need two SOLs in math, let's say they've gotten the Algebra 1 and their geometry, they will not take their Algebra 2. If they need 2 in science, they will take their earth science, pass biology, they will not take chemistry. So that's what really impacted us. It did not change anything when it comes to English. But in the lower bullet, the subject that is going to show, that I'll show you in just a second, that's going to truly impact this is going to be Algebra 2, Chemistry, and U.S. History. Because, and again, as time goes on, this is going to be the norm, but it's kind of caught us off guard because of the fact that students that we were anticipating testing they're not having to test now. In fact, actually, our guidance counselors were having to make sure that a student that needed a student-selected test passed U.S. History, but they were in a chemistry class the next day, but once they got that passed, we had to get them out of the testing sessions. So where are we at this point? This is an example for Bluestone High School. To the left, for 2017-18, for the fall, for Algebra 2, they had 79 total testers. And for fall, they had 47. Spring, they had 31, excuse me. But coming over to the numbers for 2018-19, the numbers are lower. We got 37 and 35 spring. And again, right now, that's a guesstimate, because that number can change, because if a student already passes a student selected a test, we may have to take them out of spring testing. And let me preface it with this. In our schools, the three subjects in the three subject areas of the core SOLs that normally boost scores to keep schools fully accredited are Algebra 2, Chemistry, and U.S. History. Those are normally your highest scoring ones, because those are that's where your advanced diploma students are that normally take those tests and succeed. But again, moving on to chemistry. Chemistry, our numbers, you go look at this. That's a giant drop. In the fall of 2017-18, fall 39, spring 48, total of 87 students tested. In this year, we had 11 to test, and we're thinking we've got 10. That may go down. So we've got a total of 21 testers in chemistry alone. U.S. History had 88 in the fall of 17-18. 60 in the spring, for a total of 148 students. Now we're only talking about 25 students in the fall of this year, and projecting 23, and that could potentially drop again if a student is tested out of a student-selected SOL. So that 48 could be a 40. Those are your students that will be passing these SOLs, that will be elevating us, that could potentially switch the pendulum. For Parkview High School, 17-18, Algebra 2, 66 in the fall, 53 in the spring, 119 total testers. Look at the drop-off. 6 in the fall, and we're only talking about 20, and that has to do with spring from testing from first semester, because some of the students may have gotten their student selected. So they may not now need the Algebra 2 to test. So now we're down to 82 testers for Algebra 2. Chemistry, look how devastating we are here. Instead of being at 192 testers, we're at less than 15. And again, that number could drop. U.S. History, we had 240 last year at Parkview High School testing. This year, we're looking at 57 for the spring testing. For the whole year testing. And one other thing I'll preface it with this as well. Any subject matter that has less than 50 students cannot be counted towards your scoring. Otherwise, the population is too small. So if we have 49 students to pass them all, and they're 100%, well, they won't count, because your population is too small to be counted toward your assessments. So again, that 100% we would love, but we won't get it if we're at 49 and below. So again, that hurts our opportunities as far as accreditation purposes, and we have discussed this with the state. It's everywhere, but again, it's a concern. It's definitely a concern. We wanted to make you aware. Ms. Garner and Ms. Bailey had a chance to discuss it. They were shocked, but again, and I'm sure y'all are, because again, it's not the things we were anticipating were not for the students that were sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It's great that we are reducing the numbers, but it's also putting us in a precarious situation where ultimately we're talking about students that may be more at risk of not doing well on testing to be taking SOLs, because we're now after 9th grade, you could say essentially a 9th grader could pass 3 SOLs as a standard diploma and be finished. So anybody with test in 10th and 11th grade other than in English, students that may have been struggling, having difficulties, but again, it makes our job, we got to work harder to make sure we pass everybody. But again, it just changes the pendulum as far as being able to say we're a fully accredited school. It makes our job a lot more difficult, especially when our numbers drop so significantly below 50. Are there any questions? So again, it's something that we've been thinking about it. We were not anticipating this change to come so quickly. It was something that we were anticipating coming up the line as the 9th grade group moved forward versus having happening now. So again, yes, it's positive that we're cutting back some of the testing for the students. It puts a lot of work on our guidance counselors at the high school level to make sure that, because there was a school, we were talking about it today, one school ended up having all kids test, regardless of whether they needed it or not, and they all got testing irregularities. So as soon as a student sits on a test that they're not supposed to take and they've already qualified, you've got to take them out. And sometimes it's the next day, you've got to remove the kids. So it's a lot of more work, but again, that's the job we got at hand, and we're going to make sure to make it happen.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Scales. So 2017, 2018, for chemistry, we would have 192 kids that have to prepare for a test,
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir.
So we would have to work on 192 kids to test. So now we're looking at working with 13 kids to test.
Yes, sir, for Parkview, yes, sir.
Now,
Okay.
I might point out, we still have those numbers of students in chemistry classes.
Oh, we
It's
still got-
only 13 that are eligible to test.
And those
in those
13 will be
classes.
identified as testers.
Right.
Okay.
Right, the
That's all
numbers
I
of
have.
students haven't changed within the classes. It's just the number of testers, because once they've gotten to a point where they have met all the requirements for that subject, these will be advanced diploma students that may have not passed biology or earth science if they're advanced diploma student in chemistry. Those are the only 13 that remain that need that SOL, or they may need a student selected that remain. But again, if they get in U.S. history, we got to take them out the next day,
Okay.
so they don't test.
Mr. Honeycutt?
So Dr. Scales, just so I'll understand this, that's because of the diploma they're seeking, correct?
No, sir.
It's everywhere. It's every student.
This is a requirement that's come to the state and to us from the federal government as a part of Every Child Shall Succeed Act. The federal government has now dictated to the state, and this is why it came, we didn't know that it was going to impact our sophomores, juniors, and seniors until November, and we had to scramble to get the right numbers of students tested at that point. And it's because the state had to be in alignment with the ESSA expectations of the federal government. So basically, what ESSA is saying, and what we have to live with, is at the high school level, students will take one SOL test per subject area. So it will be, ultimately, we know it will be biology for science. It has to be algebra for math, unless the student takes algebra in middle school.
So he wouldn't have to take that.
Well, they will have to take it at middle school, but when he gets to high school, he has to have a second one. That's why some of these are showing up for geometry or algebra 2, because they would have taken it, the algebra, in middle school. See, it gets complicated. We anticipate, the state hadn't finalized this, but we anticipate the state's going to determine that the social studies test is going to have to be the U.S. history test. And we will probably make some recommendations for making some changes in when students are taking these classes. And then the reading and the writing tests are the fifth and sixth.
Any other questions?
I just wanted
Ms. Bailey?
It also allows students who transfer to us, maybe mid-high school, then the first math they don't have to go back and take other SOLs if they came from another state. So if they transfer to us and they're taking Algebra 2, probably one of those 3 chemistry takers may have been a transfer student and probably did well. But the further you get down the line, the more likely they are to have struggled in their earth science or their biology, and now finally they are left if they don't pass chemistry.
Okay. Ms. Garner?
If we put earth science in the 8th grade, would the 8th graders have to take the earth science SOL, or could they wait until they got to high school and put biology in 9th grade?
I can tell you what most of the region and a lot of parts of the states are doing, what the state of Virginia is doing. it was a survey out that most schools right now have switched over, leaving biology at 10th grade, but are going to environmental science. That's something we'll be looking at going forward for the 2021 school year. But that will be the switch. But that, if you move earth science, and then I'll say this: if you move earth science to the middle school, you will not have qualified teachers to teach it, because you normally have to have a earth science background. If you move a biology teacher to try to teach something else, again, the switch, we were talking about switching, possibly moving biology to 9th grade, but it's going to be a year that you would have a cluster. So a lot of schools have just gone to the environmental science, which is a non-SOL class for 9th grade, then biology is the 10th grade, and then you meet your federal standards.
Any other questions?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this still could change even more in the future. Is that not correct?
Certainly. But the biggest thing is that, again, we will not anticipate, under the old standards, we were still anticipating students being able to take tests up, for the 11 or 7. So again, normally students took more SOLs than what they required, which we were fine, because a lot of times you end up having your students that would do well, that would help bring us up. So it's definitely different, and it's changed. Let's put it this way: there's not all the answers yet for as far as how we're going to go through accreditation, warnings, and so forth. Those answers have not been determined at this point. They're aware of it. They just will have not come up with all the answers as to what we're looking at for the future.
That's the reason I asked the question, because to my knowledge, from what I have surmised, it is still changeable, because we did not expect what we got this time around. And from what I understand from other school systems, it is still possible that we could have change.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, sir. I want to point out to the board that I was very anxious to show this, not because we're anticipating such huge drops that are going to cause issues because of the SOLs, but I wanted to reinforce again that the new guidelines by the state for the profile of a graduate, the 5 Cs that are being implemented, looking at pushing students into careers is absolutely critical. That's what accountability is going to be built on. Less testing and more students proving what they're doing for career preparation. We were very pleased to be selected, as I mentioned last month, to be a part of the first cohort of the Virginia is for Learners Network. And if you'll notice the picture, this is the team. Each school division that was selected for that honor was asked to bring 6 members to that program. You'll notice that our 6 members included one of our high school principals, myself, Mr. Cyphers is the CTE director, but we also have representative from the community college, representative from the higher ed center, representative from economic development. This is very deliberate. They asked us as teams to include community persons because they are focusing on building these 5 Cs into the students' activities and into the students' lives by actually being engaged more with the career preparation, with on-the-job training. There are less SOLs because they're requiring more verified credits through credentials. And we have a year now that this team was working. One of the things that we determined, we're very pleased with the academy approach that we're taking with the new school and implementing much of that now. The 9th graders will have to have the academy approach graduation requirements, even though they will be, as currently predicted, the first class to graduate. They'll go in as seniors. So we can't wait until we get to the new school to implement many of these components that we're looking at putting into consideration. We learned a lot from this. One of the main things we learned is that we need to do a lot of professional development with our students, with our parents, with our community, with our teachers, with staff. And that's something that we'll be working significantly on because it'll be a part of our accountability. I've asked Mr. Cyphers if he would come up and give you a preview of some of the things that at the April meeting we will be asking you to, we will be presenting to you to vote on in May as far as new graduation expectations for the 9th grade students and beyond, because we have to meet these new standards of the Virginia's for Learners program and the Virginia's 5 Cs. Mr. Cyphers?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Nichols. Tonight, I wanted to just give you kind of a brief overview of what we're looking at as far as our graduation expectations, as Mr. Nichols has just mentioned. In conjunction with the new profile of a graduate and the 5 Cs, we are working on what we call our GPS for graduation. With the help of our central office administrators, our school administrators, myself, Ms. Hendrick, and Ms. Stowers are working on an actual booklet that we will have available for students. We'll be able to pull out a page for each of the programs you'll see to my right. We have some samples of those. We have our new CTE logos. We redesigned that a little bit. We took what the students originally designed a few years ago and incorporated those icons into one logo as well as individual logos. You'll see as we move forward, you'll see a lot of things changing with that. If I have, for example, Ms. Stowers designed the second one, which is the I Love CTE poster. That will be going in all of our classrooms specific to those classes that they're pertain to. And it will also be color-coded as well. You'll notice everything pretty much on that row is basically the green color, which is what the environmental science, which is where culinary arts falls into. You'll see the picture of the young man. That is one of our students, a picture from last year. It'll have the logo as well as the information as far as the career pathway, the cluster. We have what we call our employment route calculation, which will give students a basic overview of that career field and the growth in that career field. We have a table which gives you your most popular occupations as well as your median income, your growth rate, and your larger employers. And then at the bottom of each one, we'll have what we call our points of interest. We're taking the GPS approach, which Mr. Nichols has mentioned on several occasions, and we have specific icons that will represent, for example, if there's a summer camp, which is a tent. We have a group of people which represents the career and technical student organizations. We'll have what certifications are currently available for that career pathway as well as the work-based learning. And we will do a full presentation and give you more of a PowerPoint and more graphics and things next month when we get to that point. On the back of each of those sheets, they'll have an actual roadmap to graduation, which will list some of their classes. This, again, is still all a work in progress. We still have to work with elementary with some additional things, as well as both our middle and high, to make sure we have everything covered. But our goal is to make it an easy way for students to quickly see what's going to be required for their graduation requirements. Some things that are not shown on here, for example, will be work-based learning. We have found out from DOE on June the 1st, they will release an actual work-based learning requirement as far as what students are required to have. So what you see next month will likely change somewhat as far as what students will be required to have. They will also are planning to add in additional work-based experiences. That's one of the posters over there as well. It has all of our programs currently listed as well as what options are available for work-based experiences. So DOE is expected to release some additional work-based experiences, especially to help those in rural areas, because while we're excited about doing some internal and external internships, we know that we will not have enough internal and external internships for all of our students. So we'll have to look at some other options, for example, such as the senior project. In addition to that, we will also be including summer camp information. I know the folks from the South Central Youth Development Corporation, hopefully I got it correct. I know they're going to be presenting some camps tonight. Those camps that they present will be added into our list. We also met with Southside Virginia Community College, the Extension 8 office, as well as Ms. Ann Taylor Wright with the Food Hub. And it gives you some examples on one of the posters as far as some of the potential summer camps we're looking at for the ag program, for culinary arts. And 4-H will again offer, for example, STEM in the Garden. Something new that we're working with Ms. Ann Taylor Wright for the Sova Food Hub. We have 2 camps we're looking at. One is called a Farm to Table. The students would actually learn about basic cooking skills. The second day they would go to a local farm and pick the produce, and then the third day they would actually prepare the food. And this would be run through the community college. They would take care of all the registration. We're just simply partnering with them to share the information out. So that would run through the community college, as well as the Food Hub. And she's also looking at, Ann Taylor Wright, one called Cooking as a Second Language, to actually expose students to different cultures in their food. And that could fall under both our environmental science as well as our international business and culture summer camps. We're also looking at how to best infuse career exploration into the middle and the high school curriculums. That is a requirement by DOE. Students have to complete a career, what is equivalent to a career investigations course, so the course itself. This is for the current sixth graders. It has to be done by the time they finish the eighth grade. So we've already lost our first year since we did not receive funding last year for a position. So we're trying to make sure we have a backup plan to infuse the career exploration and investigations into the middle school, starting with next year, to catch up those students who will now be in the seventh grade, as well as to make sure we start the new existing students coming in. Myself and Ms. Hendrick went last week to Madison County to look at their simulated workplace, and I'll talk more about that next month. But just a quick overview, it's basically the students are treated as an employee of a job. Each class has a company name. The students have to apply for a job. Generally, they go through a panel interview. They said normally their panel interview consists of the teacher, a school board member, a school administrator, and a community business leader. They actually get paid virtually, they say. They get a paycheck each week virtually, and they can use that for different things in the classroom. And all the classes are very clean, very organized. It's amazing to see just the caliber of what they've done with the simulated workplace. I've discussed that with my CTE high school faculty today. We're hoping to take a group of those who are interested next year, take a group this year, so we can pilot it next year for our CTE courses. But I'll talk more about that next month and show you all a video too as well about the simulated workplace. I think that's about it that I have for right now. Like I said, we'll give you more of a lengthy presentation next month. You all have any questions?
Questions? None, thanks.
One of the main points, though, is that instead of SOLs, our graduates are going to have to prove their worth with attendance, with discipline, with learning the soft skills. And we've got to find the ways to encourage that among parents. They're going to have to understand what careers are available, and we need to give them those opportunities, starting with this year's ninth graders and those that come beneath. One of the things that Mr. Cyphers and his team will bring to us next month is actually pictures of uniforms that we will be making recommendations for each of the career centers that would be for students anytime they're representing our school system out in the community for job-related activities. It will not be year-round uniforms. It will be when they're representing our schools. And I think that's a part that when you go into the business world, you have expectations of appropriate dress. So that's appropriate. We have expectations of attendance. So our students will earn points by having appropriate attendance, by having appropriate discipline, in order to be able to have some of the job experiences when they move from the 10th grade to the 11th and 12th grade. That will be recommendation about how many points. Points can be earned by summer camps, participating in those activities through the middle school, and kept up with for being able to go into those community activities as opposed to just doing a senior project of some type.
And Mr. Nichols, this is going to be a presentation next month?
That will be
Okay.
moving into the direction, because we'll have more information to know how to put that in place. But we have to present it, because, again, ninth graders are in the ninth grade now. They've only got a few more years to meet some of these expectations. So we're trying to build that ship as we're sailing it, as it's been said at one point. And I did want to bring to your attention, and we have the representatives, Reverend Lyles, and some of those that have been working with the Southside Youth Development Corporation for many years, working with particularly our impoverished minority students and helping them build their preparations for the future. They took the incentive, as we asked for wraparound services, they took the incentive to come and work with us in the development last summer of an extended learning grant that DOE has available, and they've been building that. And I'm going to ask Reverend Lyles if she'll come up and share where we're going with that extended learning grant, because it's been, I think, greatly, very exciting, available options for those students.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to the board tonight. We are so excited to be able to partner with Mecklenburg County. When Mr. Nichols approached us about wraparound services, I don't think anybody else caught the vision, but Southside Youth Development has been a part of Mecklenburg County for over 30 years, and we have been doing summer camps for that long period of time. Some of them have been by the seat of our pants, others have been boastfully taken care of by our community. as Mr. Nichols was saying, we approached VDOE for a planning grant, and we were awarded that grant. And we are happy to be able to put together a pilot program for this summer, a 6-week pilot program that will be completely in line with the different schools that you are now creating. And we're hopeful that that pilot program will be the jump-off point for something that will be much bigger in the year 2020. And with that being said, if it's all right with Mr. Nichols, I'd like to introduce the person and the camp that we have decided to model after, and that is our friend Josh Ellis. And Josh Ellis is going to have a small presentation to show you exactly what our summer camp will be like and the type of opportunities that we will be affording our children.
Good evening, guys. The presentation is about 5 minutes. Is that appropriate? So my name is Josh Ellis. I'm the director of Public Consulting Group. We're a firm based out of Boston. We've got local representation here in the state. We have office out of Glen Allen. We partner with about 105 school districts throughout the state of Virginia. In comparison to this, we offer a variety of resources that we provide school districts throughout the state, those being IEP services, consulting work through education, and specifically with EPIC summer camps. This is something that is under our University Instructors platform, which is direct student services. So this is really just a representation of what this camp is. We definitely have worked with Reverend Lyles on her team to make sure that we've aligned this camp and this offering specific to the CTE offering for Mecklenburg County. So I'll walk you through again the options, but this is more of, like you said, a 30,000-foot view of what this camp could look like. Public Consulting Group, these are the different names throughout the state that we're recognized under. We have a lot of statewide contracts. And again, these are divisions within Public Consulting Group. Just like to share this because some people know us as our brand, specific to the division that the district is partnering with us on. Public Consulting Group, again, we are a national organization. We partner with about 75% of all school districts throughout the U.S. in some capacity. We are a very long and dated company. We started 50, 60 years ago, right around 55 years ago. But the key thing here, guys, is that, again, our relationship with districts nationwide affords us, again, the content and the expertise that we then provide our summer programming, as we're talking about tonight, and other services that we provide as an organization. Our mission is student achievement. So as we talk about, again, specifically with this summer camp, any of the programs that we provide is truly around student growth and student achievement. That's incorporated through this camp modeling that you'll see. The outcome is student growth, again, preventing summer learning loss through summer programming, but also providing students options in, like I said, when you talk about their career growth opportunities, as well as, again, 21st century learning skills that are, again, adopted into the summer program that we'll talk about tonight. This is a snapshot of who we are as an organization. Again, these are all based out of our Glen Allen office. Some of the larger districts that we've partnered with in this capacity, as you can see, are large school districts, rural school districts, and mid-sized. So again, the bandwidth and what we provide in the summer aspect really runs the gamut. I mean, everything from Atlanta Public Schools to, again, very small districts throughout Virginia. I will say that most of the districts in Virginia that we partner with are rural. So again, we're providing resources and opportunity for summer camp programming that may have not been there or existed before. Our EPIC after school and summer learning is the same modeling. Sorry, it's a little sideways on this one. It's the 4 C's. So again, when we talked about the 5 C's for the CTE program, again, a lot of that's modeled after 21st century learning skills, which is something that we've helped manage for the state through 21st century learning grants. We've had the privilege of working with Mecklenburg on a 21st century grant. We helped write that grant and then also executed it for 3 years with the middle school around a STEM program. We are continuing that again this year. But again, the 4 C's is what our summer programming after school, which is extended day learning options, was built around. And so again, we are approved by the DOE and have done that throughout the state for the last about 12 years. Growth mindset, again, as we talk about, again, what the camp delivers, summer learning loss is a huge piece of it, but a growth mindset. So really making sure that, again, using the 4 C's of 21st century learning skills, those are built into our curriculum, no differently the curriculum that will align to the career centers for the specific program with Mecklenburg County this year. Again, a growth mindset is, again, not only it's social emotional learning, it's collaboration, it's teamwork, and it's content specific. So you'll see that embedded. throughout our content that we provide the camps. The really neat thing about this is all of our camp materials and content is research and validated. So again, this matches up to SOL standards throughout the state. So the content is not just camp content. It actually meets the same standards and rigors that the SOL and that the state obviously has the set standards within that curriculum. Epic Solutions, again, standards-based as we just mentioned. So again, whether it's math, literacy, or STEM, this year's unique with Mecklenburg is that, again, the content will be specifically aligned and the curriculum to the career camp of that week. So each week will be a rotating camp, again, at the same location, but rotating from the career centers. And so we'll make sure that our curriculum, our content specialist will be assigned to the camp. We'll make sure that all the curriculum is relative to the specific career center that we're actually the theme of that camp that week. The overall camp will be under college and career readiness. So again, all the content as well as the delivery, the training will be around that. Our delivery model, again, it's fully turnkey. I've got some more information for you guys as well if you guys want more hands-on. Really, it's where we present ourselves, guys, is we are a turnkey option. So we will do the planning, the logistics, the alignment, the coordination of the summer programming. We'll also provide the oversight and program management throughout, and obviously all the curriculum and materials provided for the camp. Again, that's at the discretion of, again, working with the foundation as well as, or the community foundation as well as the district to make sure it aligns to the students that will be participating as well as the career camps that will be involved this year, and then also the content they specifically want to focus on. Back to this. Really a base camp in this situation is, again, around academic content and knowledge. Again, the college and career preparedness we'll put into it. The social and emotional intelligence and learning is a big piece of it. Again, that's where, again, students are given a lot of admiration during the camp, positive reinforcement, teamwork, and collaboration, which helps to support the college and career readiness and the actual content that they'll be receiving in the camp, especially because of the population that will be attending the camp. So again, we've really made sure that we are focusing on the well-being of the community as well as obviously the content that they'll be receiving. Some of the camp modules, just for the boards to understand, this is all the different kind of contents. So each week that the camp is run, these content areas will be embedded into the Career Center. So for instance, if we're doing an engineering type of camp for Career Center 1 week, STEM and math could be a piece of it. So again, these contents for each week will be the adopted content specific for that Career Center. Again, it'll also be SOL aligned for both grades 6, 7, and 8. And then it's also adopted for the level of the student, whether it's Tier 1, Tier 2, and or Tier 3. Just an oversight of what we did last year in the summer space in Virginia. We delivered 328 weeks of summer camps. About 8,400, almost 8,500 campers attended, and we served about 25 districts. And again, some of these camps are 6 weeks long and involve thousands of students. Some involve a minimum of 30 students. So really run the gamut of the size of the program. And then just lastly, some survey results. So again, the focus on this is community engagement as well as student engagement and student growth. So we survey not only the parents, but also the students and also the teachers that are part of the program. And so we do that because we want to see the three aspects, right? So the three lenses in any program. And so basically this is last year's data, but 64% of our campers improved problem solving, which is one of the key components of not only CTE, but 21st century learning skills. 68% showed better ability to learn new things. And so again, these are typically your most critical students in any district we partner with. So that is a huge gain from to their traditional 180-day curriculum that they're seeing this kind of survey response from. And then 94% again learn things that will help them in school for the following year, which again is an advocate of just the learning process, but also the career preparedness as well. And then staff, I think this is the telltale. So a lot of the staff that we use with districts, we partner with district staff to implement the program as well as, again, consultants we bring into it. In this situation, 90% of our camps are run by teachers of that district. So they're really giving us great perspective as a practitioner on what the camp provides. 98% believe summer camp was beneficial to its campers, meaning again that it was a growth mindset and they achieved that growth. 96% felt activities were engaging to the campers, so high engagement. This camp is built around engagement, so there's a lot of hands-on collaboration, teamwork concept. Very little screen time is involved in these camps. 75% of campers showed improvement in social interaction, which is a huge piece against on that social and emotional learning, as well as 21st century learning skills. And then 83% felt campers were positively motivated to participate. And again, in some situation, these are the campers or students that are not participating in year-round school. And that's an overview of our program. Any
Questions, board members? Ms. Garner?
What age group will you be focusing on, and how will these students be chosen?
Yeah, great question. So the district itself would select, so we're working in partner with the district to select the students. Specific for these camps, it would be grades 6, 7, and 8.
Mr. Honeycutt?
What is the cost of this program?
Great question. So for turnkey, this includes payroll as well. So the proposal we have in front of them, or I should say in front of the association, is $69.99 per student per day. So right now, we've afforded 25 students per day. Of the 6 weeks, each week, that 25 students will be rotated. So again, we'll have 6 weeks times 25 on how many students will be impacted. But that fee rate per day includes everything: payroll, materials, development, our resources, alignment, and program management.
But that's not a cost that's going to be shared with the students. That's the grant is taking care of that cost. These camps will be specifically focused at our students who couldn't afford other camps otherwise.
So grants covering the entire cost. Ms. Bailey, you have a
Yes.
question? Mr. Palmer?
Transportation.
Yeah, great question. So we are partnering with the school district to provide drop-off zones for students. So we're working with them to provide, again, places that students could obviously, for their ease, for transportation, could access. We're also finalizing the site for the actual camp. So again, I know we're looking at school resources as well as some third-party resources as well. We should finalize that in the next couple weeks.
Any other board members with questions?
This affords us the opportunity to give points for student participation, get them engaged in activities, give them the option not only of the 4-H and the Boy Scouts and the church camps and things of that nature, but something that maybe those who couldn't afford otherwise can participate in. It's important to announce this at this meeting because now we're going to start talking about getting the students involved in the camps, letting them know. The fishing teams can be given some options for some of these types of things. You know, it's getting the students engaged through the summer and that carry through for the new accountability standards that we have. So we thank SYDC very much for your wraparound support, and thank you, and thanks to Gary and his team and the principals that have put the other efforts into getting the other camps identified. We'll be getting that out to the students in the middle schools very soon so they can make some choices.
Paul, what if anything else you're going to ask the board? As far as, do we need to vote on transportation or anything else in the future related to this camp?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
This is for information.
Okay.
Okay, moving along. Last month, we presented you with information about a truck purchase that you'll need to vote on tonight. I didn't know if there were any questions that the board had about that.
Mr. Nichols, what about the
Oh,
graduation
excuse me,
expectation?
I moved right beyond item I. I'm sorry. Yes, as you know, we have with the new schools the need to identify the name of the schools, which we've been doing surveys for, as well as the mascot and the colors for the new school. So we are at the point now of identifying the new school name. We did a survey. The recommendations that have come back from the survey are for Mecklenburg County Middle School and Mecklenburg County High School, and I will be asking you to vote on that tonight. Any questions?
None. Mr. Ritchie?
I said something before about this, and I just wanted to say it again. I was bothered a little bit about how the survey was constructed. There were two competing names that had a lake reference in it, and then there was one for Mecklenburg County. So it turned out the Mecklenburg County name only got 43% of the vote, which is not the majority, but I don't know if there's anything we plan on doing about that. I mean, do we go into it saying whichever one gets the most votes is it, or did we say 50% or more?
Well, ultimately, the name is the determination of the board. You know, I think we were looking at what would have the majority votes. You have the right to go back and, you know,
Okay.
make
Well,
some
I don't
changes.
have any preference. If that's what the board wants, that's fine, but I didn't.
We will
I wasn't
take
sure
that,
the
there will be
survey-
another survey related to the mascot, and I think that's something we will definitely keep in mind, is having maybe two options as opposed to,
And maybe we could look at the survey, the board could look at it a little bit before it was released.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, continue on.
Any others? Okay, how about with the transportation service truck purchase, any questions about that before?
That's the one we voted on last time, right?
It was, We had the conversation.
There wasn't a vote.
But it wasn't voted on at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Mayhew has another request for one of the bus services this summer.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayhew. Dr. Scales, can you please cut the lights back on? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board Member Superintendent Nichols. I'm here presenting our annual request from the Virginia Cooperative Extension of Mecklenburg County and Virginia Tech. They're requesting 3 buses to transport students and luggage to the 4-H camp at Holiday Lake this summer. They'll be departing Boydton Monday, July the 22nd at 8:30 and returning on Friday, July the 26th, 2019. Virginia Tech will be providing the insurance coverage for the buses and the students. They are requesting 2 buses for students and 1 for luggage. And this is for information for this month.
Thank you.
Any questions?
It's been standard for years.
Sir?
It's been standard
Yes, sir.
SOP for years, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we have the annual plan presentation by Ms. Hodges.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Superintendent Nichols. Thank you for your time this evening, and I would like to present to you the review of our annual plan for the 2019-2020 school year. If you'll see your packet there that you have, on pages 2 through 5 is the LEA assurances, making sure that you're in compliance with the federal and state regulations. Page 6, we have the division having no barriers, meaning that our students are getting all the services that they need at this time. Page 1 is the implementation narrative for the 2019-20 school year and how we're spending our monies. We have the maintenance of effort, page 1. That's our local funding and how that money is projected out. For our maintenance of effort 2017-18, we've made that. We're on track for the 2018-19 year, and we're projected to make the maintenance of effort for the 2019-20 school year. Page 1 of our comprehensive coordinating early intervention services, as well as that proportion set aside. Those are monies that we have set aside to make sure our students are getting services within the private school settings for speech and OT, as well as we've been cited on some areas that we need to work on in special education with identification and the discipline. So we've got money set aside to help with that as well. Page 12 is a narrative for Part B, Section 611 funding, and there we have the set-asides as well there. Page 13 is a breakdown of the Part B, Section 611 grant funding being used. Page 15 is the preschool funding for Section 619. And then on page 16, there's a breakdown of that funding and how it's used. Please, this is for review, so if you have any questions or concerns, please give me a call, and I'm hoping you all will be able to vote on that in April for me, if you would.
And any questions?
None.
While you're up, Ms. Hodges, we'd like to go ahead with the policy IKFA update.
Yes, and this is hot off the press from our school attorney. We've just received this afternoon. We want to make sure that this was in our school policy before we actually went through the process. This is the special permission, locally verified credit accommodation. This is for our students with IEPs and 504s that have actually completed the coursework for the SOL and passed the course, but they're struggling to pass the actual SOL test. These are students that have scored below 375, and we will have the special accommodation, the special permission process where we send those names to DOE. They will review that information of the student as well as the coursework that's been presented, and then they'll send it back to us as a local panel to determine whether we will locally provide those locally awarded verified credits for the students. But this is another process to help our students get those standard diplomas. This, you see the verbiage they have there. They've kind of marked through and changed the wording just a bit for us, but the school attorney did look at that and get it to us this afternoon so we could present it to you all.
And this too will be voted on at the next board meeting.
In April, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Any questions? None? Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Ms. Hodges. We have many plans that have to be approved for next year. Mr. Cyphers is going to present the Perkins Plan, which has been also going under significant changes.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, school board members, Mr. Nichols. Tonight, I present the Perkins Plan for you for the 2019-2020 school year. This is a change for us as far as the year. They have made a considerable amount of changes. We actually got a nice, about 1-inch thick manual as far as all the new changes for the Perkins Plan. So myself, as well as several of the other CTE administrators in Region 8 met several weeks ago to kind of go over this. This is all a learning process for us. In addition to the traditional Perkins Plan you'll see in the packet that was loaded on the board, we are now required every 2 years to go through a comprehensive local needs assessment for each of our CTE programs. And again, when we talked to the DOE specialists and the other folks in the region, they mentioned to do the best we could with this. They're still trying to figure out what's required for these things. And they have actually assigned one of the CTE state administrators to each of our plans, and then they'll review that and go over that with us. So there is the comprehensive needs assessment, which has multiple pages as far as what is required, and thanks to Mrs. Alga as well as Mrs. Hodges and Ms. Moore and Mrs. Stewart who helped, and the other folks helped gather all this data for this. It does require a lot of data. Just a couple of things I would like to point out. One of the other documents that you have, and Ms. Hatcher has pulled it up on the screen, is our annual performance report, and I'm excited to say this is the first year we have met all of our standards. Myself and my teachers and other staff have worked very hard to bring up these numbers in the last few years since I've been working with CTE. And you'll see, for example, the first one under all CTE completers, the percentage dropped, but we increased tremendously on the number of students who are actually obtaining the student competency rate. We did drop to 95%, but we went from 120 students in the 2016-2017 school year to 178 students. We also increased tremendously. You'll see in B, C, D, and E for all completers, we went from 59% in 2015 to 97% in 2017-18. Some of the other ones we made huge gains. The completer passing credentialing test rate, we went from 46% to 91%. And E, the completers who passed credentialing tests, plus completers who earned the advanced studies diploma who did not pass the credentialing test, we went from 56% to 92%. And as well, the students who are earning an advanced studies diploma who pass credentialing tests, that last option is not required in our standards. Below there, we have the special populations performance. You'll see that we have increased there as well in most categories. Specifically in Category B, we went from 57 to 95%. Category C from 63 to 92. Category D from 36 to 88%. Category E from 46% to 91%. And our last category we increased as well. And if, Ms. Hatcher, if you can scroll down to page 5. One of the other things that we get a lot of feedback on your non-traditional completers, if you'll scroll down a little bit more for me. One of the things that we've tried to fix, and we are trying to figure out what happened with these things, but we had a 0% non-traditional completer. So we worked hard to make sure that was fixed correctly in our SIS system, that we actually reported that we had 53 out of 144 who are non-traditional completers, and those are your males in nursing, females in coding, things of that nature. So we're excited, very happy we met all of our performance-based standards this year. And just a couple of things to highlight on the Perkins Plan. It is based on the current allotment they received last year. So we are, right now, have a total of find the page number. It's $96,894.72. The majority of that, $81,665, is being pulled for equipment to help upgrade some of the programs. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of that equipment next month during the work-based learning or simulated workplace. Something that we are going to increase again this year, you'll notice that, and this unfortunately is not numbered like it used to be in the past. It doesn't go 1 to 58. Each section starts over again. So one of the things in Schedule 17, which is further along into the document, the young man mentioned about the cost of these trips. And that's one thing I've tried to increase. And talking with other school divisions, a lot of other school divisions do not use Perkins funding to help pay to send your special population students to your state and national career and technical student organization events. So I've worked hard to increase that with the assistance of several staff members here who helped me to identify who is a special population student and who is not. And we spent a lot more money last year on that than we did the previous year, and we're expected to spend more than what we have now here. Right now it's currently listed at $3,500, but I expect to at least double that, if not triple that, based on, it all depends on the students, who they qualify, who goes, and if they meet a special population. But that has helped tremendously, because if they meet a special population, I can pay for their registration and their lodging. And that removes that barrier for that student and allows them to participate in more activities. Do you all have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
This too will be voted on in April. Okay. The Consolidated Code of Conduct and Student Handbook will be presented by Dr. Scales.
School members, and last month I had offered for information only as far as a consolidated student handbook and code of conduct. The reason being is to, one, reduce the amount of documentation that's going home. And again, since I provided for information, I had not heard any feedback on anything, but if there's anything that needs to be changed or revised at this point, please let me know. But other than that, I'd like to go forward to make it a final document so we can move forward. Other than if there are any changes once approved, there will be changes to state legislative information or VSBA changes. That will be the only thing that will be changed. Other than that, again, it's a smaller document, consolidating, starting with the code of conduct, and I inserted the handbook information for families to go forward at this point for the division.
Questions? None. Thank you.
And then the social studies adoption. Dr. Scales.
Not quite. Starting in February, we had an opportunity for our community and teachers to look over the social studies textbooks, and we have a proposal for you for information purposes at this time, going forward with Five Ponds Press. If you have any questions, please let me know. We did have we did have parental input and staff input for that book, and we'd like to go forward with it. It's a mix of textbooks, classroom sets, and we also have access to e-services for 7 years up to 2026. And going forward into the new school, that'll be advantageous for us with the e-book access for all students. And again, one thing with social studies, since we only have to order half of the books, since the students rotate between science and this is a middle school textbook adoption. So this is for your information at this time for the invoice.
Questions? Dr. Scales, appreciate your work and effort you put into it, you and your staff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Nichols.
Yes, my final comments, I think it's very obvious to the board and to the public that there's a lot of work that has been done, a lot of work that will yet to be done as we move to a new way of educating our students. And we are so thankful to have the opportunity for the new schools, but the teachers are in need of support with salary scales and salary increases. That's one of our more difficult points. We're making huge adjustments, huge gains. Everybody's working very hard. I appreciate your support in working with us and making these adjustments and changes. I appreciate your patience tonight as we presented all of the camps and things, because I know it takes time to get this into the community, to get into the hands and the hearts and the thoughts of the parents and the students. It's part of the professional development that we talked about, but it's going to be critical for our success moving into the future. And I want to just emphasize, the new schools, the changes in the education that we are looking at, the salary scales, the salary increases, is an investment in economic development of this county. That's the bottom line. I've already had opportunity to talk with 2 businesses that are looking at Mecklenburg County to come in, and one of the things they're most excited about is that they're looking at having a workforce in the future that has been trained for the jobs that they have. And it's going to be critical for Mecklenburg County's future for these investments and this work that will be done. And I thank you for your patience tonight as we work through all of these.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. I have 2 things. First thing is, board members, you should have received a VSBA policy agreement. Everyone should have that. We're going to be voting on that next month. We currently use VSBA to update our policies, and that has to be reviewed every 5 years. The other thing I have, I'm officially announcing that I will not be running again as a school board member in Mecklenburg County. So anyone that knows anyone that has interest in District 2, please reach out to them, encourage them to apply. They can contact the registrar's office, he can give them the information, or he can call me, and I'll help them any way I can. It's just an official announcement. I will no longer seek re-election as a school board member. We're going to move on. Next thing is the Joint Education Capital Improvement Committee. We have a report on that.
No report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Finance Committee?
Finance Committee met this afternoon at 5 o'clock. We went over the bills. All the bills were in order. We will be recommending them for payment tonight.
Thank you. School Safety Committee?
Have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Gifted Talent and Special Education Committee?
No report.
No report. Thank you. E, CTE, Career Technical Education Committee?
You don't have anything else, Mr. Cyphers? No.
No. Thank you.
We had plenty.
Athletics Committee?
No.
No report. Thank you. Instructional Committee? Nothing. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone sign up for public input?
Yes, we do. At this time, matters may be publicly brought to the attention of the board and the administration. Public comments at board meetings are just one of many avenues for communication, and the board recognizes and appreciates the importance of input from and communication with the public we represent. The public is invited to sign up to speak. The clerk of the school board will write down your name, contact information, and the topic that you wish to speak about. The public is allowed up to 6 minutes at most meetings to express their views. Please respect that time limitation. It will be enforced. Please understand that it may not be possible to immediately respond to questions. As a reminder, it is inappropriate at a public meeting to make personal attacks, to be defamatory, or to disparage individuals or identifiable groups. Again, we welcome and appreciate your input. Prior to beginning your comment, please state your name to the board. I have Ann Garnett Miller.
To the board and everyone, good evening. I am Ann Garnett Miller. Several weeks ago, while in Boydton, I came by our school board office to vote on a name for our new schools. I was going to vote for East West High School. It would have been a good name. I was very disappointed to view pre-selected names already on the computer. There was also not a space for a citizen to type in their vote. I am asking the board, excuse me, why wasn't all of the high schools listed? I will explain. Only 2 choices were given. They were, did you attend Parkview or Bluestone? As we all know, Clarksville High School, West End High School, Chase City High School, Thine, East End High School, and Mecklenburg Training School are no longer operational. Yet, if it had been included in the selection online for us to view and select, it would have made the students of these schools feel that we were part of this big decision. I am aware that the present students of Parkview and Bluestone were instrumental in selecting these names. We are proud of our students here in Mecklenburg, yet we as adults are the taxpayers and should have had a voice. Our schools are still very dear to our hearts, even at our ages and stages in life. Don't we count? Second, I am asking the board to keep its promise made a few years ago to have an archives in the new high school for the pictures and trophies from the old high schools. If there is a facility bill in the future by the alumni, excuse me again, of West End High School building, or if West End High School building is offered by the county, there will probably be a request for those items, and only at that time. We are asking this board to name the gym, the auditorium, the libraries, and so forth for our past educators. For example, Mrs. Dorothy J. Harris, principal of West End High School from the 1950s to the 1970s into integration. Mr. Moore, principal of Bluestone during the same time. The selection is many. Last, we must stop dismissing history, not including, taking down, wanting to forget those seniors that came before us. Please don't let this happen in this county, what is happening in some of the other areas. We must preserve all our history. If it offends one, one should not view it. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? We had a vote last month about, as a request from Mr. Spain and the others for records to be transmitted to the organization that was going to be using those. Is this a separate request for archives and so forth?
Years ago, I stood here asking that for the new school to have an archives to house for an area for our pictures and trophies. And I stated that Bluestone has restored all of our pictures. They're on the wall. They're very nice. They're all intact. But Parkview is in a church in the basement on the floor. And I asked that everything be taken to the new school and the archives be there for those items. I understand that Mr. Spain has asked, that project is not off the ground. It's not off the ground yet. So until, like I said, until that happens, which is going to be in the far future, we are still asking the school to have an archives. It's very important for our students and the community, people moving here. They're very interested in our history, and for our great-grands to see these trophies and pictures and other artifacts. And there is a place, I believe, would be most appropriate for it to be in the new school. And I understand that he has asked for, this is for a building that the alumni is asking us, was supposed to be building, but it's not ready, not off the floor.
I just was wondering if it was a different request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question, boards?
No, ma'am.
Members? Thank you for listening.
Bain Cameron.
Good evening, Chairman Sturdivant, members of the Board of Supervisors, Superintendent Nichols. My name is Bain Cameron. I had hoped to share these comments with you at last week's meeting when you received other information about the naming of the coming school. When that meeting had to be rescheduled, you are aware that I was unable to join you. Graceland, Monticello, the Pentagon, The Hague, Shangri-La, Alcatraz, the Alamo, or more locally, Prestwood, Rosemont, Mars, the Apollo missions, Falcon 9, the Crab Nebula, the Big Dance. Contrast these with and imagine the color lost in our world if instead the Presley House, San Francisco Bay Federal Prison, Mecklenburg County Winery, Planet 4, public school, or worse, PS 37, the men's college basketball playoffs. While true, these names are unmistakably droll, bland, vanilla, flat. Imagine the engagement, the vision, the inspiration lost had NASA elected to launch New Mars Lander Mission 1, used Rocket 7, or from Launch Pad 39B, launched Shuttle 3. Is the nation better served by Mars Pathfinder, Atlas, and Space Shuttles Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis, Endeavour, and yes, Enterprise? The roles of school board member is a serious call and a serious responsibility. We in the county certainly do, or rather, we in the county certainly do contribute to the ponderousness of your service. The naming of a school is surely a small opportunity that you could take to have some fun. In the past few days, your administrators have shared information about the nomination process for Teacher of the Year, which the board will recognize in the coming months. One of the award criteria is engaging and articulate expression. Please set the standard for engaging imagination. The secondary experience and outcomes are no more the name on the building than they are the blocks and the doors that constitute the building. That said, we are building a school in the 21st century. The board will consider adopting, at best, a 20th century name. History can be quite dull. Isn't it enhanced by, remember the Alamo? The board has an opportunity to inspire the history of our future. I submit that these are not unimaginable possibilities, but unimagined possibilities. Give this county an inspired future. Have some fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Madam Clerk?
No, that's everyone.
Okay, we're going to move on to action. Can I get a motion that the school board approves the minutes of the special school board meeting held on February 4th, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Garner, second, Mr. Edwards. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. Get a motion that the school board approves the minutes of the regular school board meeting held on February 19th, 2000.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Edwards, a second from Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. Payment of the bills.
Finance Committee recommends paying the bills.
Thank you. Motion to approve the bills.
Motion.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Edwards, second, Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. Get a motion that the school board approves the personnel recommendations.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Honeycutt, second from Ms. Garner. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Abstain.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. Get a motion that the school board approves the release of a student from compulsory attendance due to religious exemption.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Garner, second from Mr. Edwards. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. Get a motion that the school board approves the purchase of an additional service truck for transportation department.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Edwards, second from Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. Get a motion that the school board approves the consolidated student handbook and code of conduct. We have a motion from Ms. Garner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Bailey. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. Get a motion that the school board approves the updates to policy KG-RI, community use of school facilities.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Honeycutt.
Second.
Second from Ms. Garner. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Get a motion that the school board approves the name of the new high school.
So-
That's Mecklenburg County High School, and the name of the new middle school is Mecklenburg County Middle School. We have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt.
I'm sorry,
yes, so moved.
And a second from Mr. Edwards.
Okay, discussion.
Yes, discussion. Mr. Ritchie.
In light of the speakers tonight, and, I feel like we're rushing this vote some, that maybe we consider postponing it.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Ritchie has made a motion that we postpone the vote. Is there a second?
Yes.
We have a second from Ms. Bailey. The motion is on the floor that we postpone the vote for the new school. Yes or no vote? Roll call.
Excuse me, do we need to vote on the first motion first?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, we had a motion on the floor.
Is there any discussion in regards to postponing the vote on the school tonight? Any discussion? If there is no discussion, we're going to vote. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
No.
Mrs. Garner?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Edwards?
No.
Mr. Sturtevant?
No, the motion has failed. We'll go back to the initial motion of making a vote. We have a motion and a second to name the school Mecklenburg County High School, Mecklenburg County Middle School. If there's no other discussion, roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
No.
Mrs. Bailey?
No.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes, the motion is carried. The name of the new school is Mecklenburg County High School and Mecklenburg County Middle School. Next item is the budget.
Make a motion that we approve the budget as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes. We're at the point of board member remarks. We'll start to our left. Ms. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say a few things, just to please, Board of Supervisors, please fund our budget fully. It's been well thought out, and the requests are very immediate, and we need them. Also, congrats to Mr. Cyphers and your CTE staff. The strides you've made in the last couple of years are amazing, and we are so grateful to have you and those that are working in that department doing the job that they're doing. Our architectural preview was amazing, very encouraging. Thank you, Mr. Sturtevant, for the wooden plaque.
Well deserved.
It's beautiful. Also, I'd like to thank the Southside Youth Development Corporation for the partnership and the writing of that grant, and for bringing those quality programs to children this summer. They will be blessed by that. And my favorite thing tonight was I got 3 great quotes. I can learn, I learn from my mistakes, and I persevere when I'm frustrated. That's probably the biggest one. And also, I want to thank the public for attending and coming to the podium and making your comments. And just my last thing is that in good conscience, I can't vote for something that I know that more than half people did not support, those that responded to our survey of the new school. I can't do that. So thank you, Ms. Sturtevant, for that opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bailey. Ms. Garner.
Oh, I'd like to say I attended the robotics competition this weekend, and I really appreciate the students that were there, the mentors, the teachers, and you would not believe the support from the parents that attended the event. It was very exciting, and really exciting knowing that after 16 years of gradually improving to come in second at the competition this weekend. They have an opportunity now to go to Fairfax April the 10th through the 13th to compete in the regionals. They haven't got the final say yet, but they are expecting to get it. I'm going to wish them good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Garner. Mr. Palmer. Mr. Ritchie?
Yeah, my concern, I don't have any personal preference when it comes to the name, but my concern is that there were people that felt left out of the process. And, we want as many people to feel part of the process. And that was my only objection to that. So, but I'm fine, my kids are going to go there, and they'll be proud to go there, so I'm fine with the name. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody felt that they had been heard and included, and that all their opinions were important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Mr. Johnson.
First of all, I'd like to say that I've been asked by several people what's the name of the new school going to be, and most people that I talked to said that all other counties are naming their schools after the name of the county. And they say that they would like to see it named Mecklenburg, which I think that stands and speaks for everybody that lives in this county, not just one. I live on the lake, it'd be called Lake Country, and I'd have been satisfied with it, but it doesn't really represent the people that don't live next to the water. So I think it was a good name. The second thing that's pressing hard on me today is I talked to the school resource officer that was involved in the situation last week at Bluestone Middle School. We've got a serious problem with behavior and conduct in our schools. And the sad thing is, there's not much we can do about it because of the rules and regulations that Richmond is handing down to us. And I spoke with the school resource officer, a young lady today, and she pulled her sleeve up and showed me 2 bite marks on her arm where a child had bit her. She had more grace than I would have had probably, but I thought to myself, we gotta start doing something to let these kids know that we mean business for the sake of our teachers and those that's working in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Edwards.
Yeah, I'm going to address two subjects. Ms. Miller, I know where you're coming from. For the last 5-6 years, every time and maybe some of you'll go research this, every time I go to Danville and go through that mall, and you go through the basement of the mall in Danville, and you need to go, it has a history of Danville. It has the African-American community. It has all their schools. It has the new schools. It has it all. And they're done in murals on the walls of that mall. It's something to, I mean, they've got cars from the 1920s, 30s, 40s. They have the different schools, and they're in murals, and there may be some way that we could incorporate something like that into some of our hallways so that when the kids are going to classes, or the people are going into these schools to go into the gymnasiums or into the new 900-seat auditorium that we're going to have, that they would be able to stand in that lobby and look at some of these things and remember history, like you're saying. Because I'm not for taking down the monuments either, but I'm for remembering all the good things and all the bad things. We don't want the bad ones to happen again, and we want to make some more good ones. And I think we all need to get together on that. We're a close-knit community, and I think it's a good fight to have. The next thing is something more enlightening. The two fishing teams, the Mecklenburg Anglers and the Mecklenburg High School Bassmasters, will be at Smith Mountain Lake this weekend. They will be fishing on Saturday, and I think right now we've got like 4 teams that are qualified for the state tournaments, and that's great for the first full year of the fishing sport that we put into our schools. And I understand they're having more and more captains joining now, so next year we'll probably double the number of boats and the number of kids that'll be participating. So I just want to thank the school board for voting for that, and for Mr. Sturtevant, he's the one that brought that to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Ms. Honeycutt.
Yes. Mrs. Garner, Mrs. Bailey, Mr. Nichols, and myself had an opportunity to go to Bedford County yesterday and attend the Southern Region Network Forum. It was great participation. We had all of our counties in our division representative. That's a very slim margin in the state of Virginia where they have 100% participation, but I believe it's been that way for the last 3 years. So that was exciting to hear. A lot of great things. We got to go to their new middle school, which was fantastic, and see, and God, it just smelled clean. It looked clean. It was bright. It was airy, but it was a lot of great things going on. But, you know, I saw a lot of sayings around the room. And I think that one that stood out to me the most, and, you know, and this is going to piggyback on what Mr. Johnson had to say, you know, we do have a lot of bad things that happen in our school, whether it be with the teachers, teaching staff, or with our students. You all need to have, and our students need to have the courage to step out and not feel like they're being bullied into submission or scared to suffer the ramifications of what might happen by speaking out when they see they're doing something wrong. So, you know, I thought about that last night when I was there, and I sat at a round table, and I was at the front with Mr. Coleman, who was the president of the Southern Virginia region, and I turned around, and it was a podium just like that, and it was a message there on the front, and I loved it. And it said, "Courage is finding the strength to do what is right while everyone around you is doing wrong." That just hit home to me. And I said, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful if our students or our teachers or whoever had that strength to find the courage to step up or to voice, you know, if they see something that's wrong going on. And I think we might nip a lot of these situations that we have at our schools in the bud. Also, I want to say a special thanks to Mr. Cyphers. I was able, again, I've said this before, but my first year here as a school board member, I got to sit in on that interview with Mrs. Alga and Mr. Nichols. And that is one of my achievements as a school board member, is bringing Mr. Cyphers or making the recommendation that he come here, because he's done an excellent job. And seeing these numbers tonight just reiterated it for me. And again, Gary, thank you to you and your staff for what you're doing and what you continue to do to make Mecklenburg County Public Schools shine. And last but not least, I want to touch on about the name of the school. I serve on that committee. I've attended only one meeting, unfortunately. Things have happened where I couldn't be there. But Mecklenburg County Public Schools, for me, has a lot of history. I think for anybody that has lived in Mecklenburg County, whatever your age, there's a lot of history. Hold on to that history. Remember that history. That's something that you or I or anybody else can take away from you. So again, as we continue to look to the future and move forward, we're doing it with dignity and grace. I'll remember the past. I learned about the past. I wasn't privy to a lot of the past, but I'm excited about what's happening in Mecklenburg County as a school board member. We've made a lot of strides the last 3 years. There's been a lot of heartaches, a lot of emotions, tempers, but we have persevered, and we will continue to do so as a group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Honeycutt. Mr. Nichols, you have anything else?
I think I've talked enough tonight.
We have a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? All opposed?